We're back and we are better than ever. You heard me say it last week. This is something special, and I felt like we did pretty good. And we're in for another great episode of Seipp and Shaun, the Right Way Sports Network's New York sports talk show. Tom Seipp, Shaun Chornobroff. We're here and we're great. Tom, how are you doing today?
Doing fantastic. How about yourself?
I mean, it's 12:23 a.m. and I'm doing amazing. And remember, before we
Love
get
it.
into anything, subscribe to the Right Way Sports Network on YouTube. Check out TWSNet to check out TWSN.net to check out all of our great content, and download the TWSN app. And we've even got some merch now. So go check that out. Drop a couple bucks, support the growth, and trust me, support us, be along for the ride, because we're only going up from here. And now, Tom, let's get into it. Tom, me and you seem to be somewhat synonymous on something. I think we were actually pretty similar on this opinion. New York sports world, I mean, I guess Brooklyn Nets are technically a part of it. We're Knicks fans, and no, we're not going to hate on the Nets. Actually, like, we're unbiased as they come. But the reality is we can't do a New York sports show and not talk about the Nets and James Harden coming there. Sure, as of right now, there's no official deal. In fact, apparently the rumors are running rampant on what the deal would include, this and that. But all I know is I don't want James Harden to be a new Brooklyn Net. And no, I would like the attention you bring to the city. Hell, you make the Nets entertaining. I don't mind seeing the Nets win. I don't have any Nets hatred. I root for my team, and I don't really hate on other people's teams. Tom knows that. I don't really care about anybody else. I'm an analyst first, fan second. But
Sure.
I don't like the egos. I mean, Kyrie Irving didn't want to be LeBron's number two, right? Goes to Boston, gets hurt, and then they do good without him. He comes in there the next year, and they do worse. And he leaves after saying, "I'm going to be here for a while," or whatever the exact quote was. And then he goes to Brooklyn. And year one in Brooklyn, it's all good. It's all happy. Hell, he was the number one scorer. KD wasn't there. KD, now back. Kyrie's going to have to step back into that number two role we know he really doesn't love. Now bring in James Harden. Kyrie's not going to be number two over James Harden. Let's get one thing clear. Cool, you have D'Antoni, you have Steve Nash, you have Mari Stoudemire. You're supposed to have this all-star coaching staff. Too many mouths to feed. Golden State works because Klay Thompson, Draymond Green are both pretty selfless players, along with Steph himself. It's a pass and move offense, actually. LeBron worked with the big three. Chris Bosh took a step back. Hell, look at Kyrie. Kevin Love was a 20-10 guy. We thought he was a top three power forward center in all of basketball. Takes a step back and becomes basically a 3-and-D or three-point shooter for a while. Nobody here is going to want to do that. That's the recipe for success. And right now, the Nets, in my opinion, if they get James Harden, are preparing to be one of the biggest flops in sports history.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the Golden State Warriors, and you mentioned. I mean, look at those All-Stars, right? Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. Even when Kevin Durant was there, the reason why they worked was because the players complemented each other. Say you put a big three, I guess it would essentially be Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, James Harden all together. That is just, to me, that just screams failure. Because first of all, let's talk about just getting him to Brooklyn. That would take a lot. And you look at this Brooklyn team 2 years ago, everyone thought they, had the most potential out of, probably any team in the league because they had all the young good guys, even with D'Angelo Russell, before they were signing Durant or Irving, D'Angelo Russell, Joe Harris, Jared Allen, Spencer Dinwiddie, Karis LeVert, like all these young guys meshing together, and they were great. They were a fun team to watch. And when they played the 76ers in the playoffs, this is a fun series. And everyone thought that, years move on, they'd get more and more exciting and mesh together, and they'd be successful. Then they went the, the big market route because the Brooklyn Nets, they are a big market team now. And they got these guys. So let's just look at, if the trade did happen, you take James Harden, who is, obviously he's the most ISO heavy player we maybe have ever seen, right? We have him with Kyrie Irving, and we know the head case. We know the isolation he brings. Then we have Kevin Durant, who, I believe is one of the most talented players ever, but we don't know what he's going to look like after this injury. Let's say, this year he might be 80% maybe if he's there yet. So you have three players who just don't mesh together. And then who's your fourth best player after that? If, they're trading all these pieces. Seriously, who is it? I don't know.
I think you would have to hope it's DeAndre Jordan.
And that's a scary thought. So I just
DeAndre Jordan of LA Clippers either. This is DeAndre Jordan far removed from his prime.
Yeah, and people have to realize that if James Harden went to the Brooklyn Nets, this isn't NBA 2K. This isn't a video game where you can have the three best players on the court and play them all game, every game. You can't do that. again, you have a guy coming off of a massive injury, a guy who's injury prone, and a guy who dominates the ball. I just don't understand how this would work out fully healthy at their best. And if they're playing 48 minutes a game, I mean, it'd be entertaining to watch. Of course, no one's denying that. It'd be a great team to run up on 2K with. But the fact of the matter is, this is just a non-realistic thought that if something were like this were to happen, I just think it's a disaster.
And like the point you bring up most is depth. Like look at those Warrior teams. Look at those Heat teams. Like this is the model they're trying to follow right now. We talk about this Heat. We talk about Mike Miller, Shane Battier near the end of his career, Ray Allen off the bench hitting clutch shots. Warriors have Andre Iguodala. I mean, Draymond Green set to do a secondary role. Andrew Bogut was more than reliable for them. Hell, they had so many guys who could do stuff for them. Sure. Shaun Livingston was supposed to get a payday and took a pay cut to stay with the Warriors because they had a culture that built them. Steve Kerr had already established something there that had been started by Mark Jackson. I don't see that already in Brooklyn. I see it. You have the toxic environment there. And we even talk about James Harden. Dwight Howard couldn't work with him. Chris Paul couldn't work with him. Who's worked with James Harden? Seriously. He was the number 3 on OKC, and as a youngster was getting in trouble for partying during the finals. They choose to pay Serge Ibaka instead of him. Goes to Houston, established himself as a superstar. They go, oh crap, we need to bring in somebody. I don't remember the exact events. They bring in Dwight Howard. Dwight Howard is still a pretty good center. He wasn't prime Dwight Howard, but they made the effort to get him a superstar. Didn't work. You go get CP3. We saw how that went. We saw how that ended. Chris Paul's not the most lovable guy in the world. I'm not going to deny that. The guy's had some controversy surrounding him, but it doesn't work. And then you bring in Russell Westbrook. Those guys were friends. 1 year and it's already in shambles. As much as people like to hate on Russell Westbrook, do you think he's controversial? Does he talk an enormous amount of crap about people? Other than Kevin Durant?
I don't think so. I think he's well respected in terms of around the players in the league. I mean, we all know the Kevin Durant stuff, but besides that, I mean, you don't really hear too many bad things.
Sure,
character-wise.
Yeah, no, exactly. Paul George left him, but Paul George left Russell Westbrook to go get Kawhi Leonard. He upgraded. He upgraded, and it was just that team was going to do it. I mean, the head coach is gone now. It wasn't all on Russ. In fact, we have seen Russ carry teams to playoffs on his own.
Sure.
Right? Yeah, Russ gets to the second round. But no matter who you partner James Harden with, James Harden has become ball dominant. So has Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't work. Yeah, I mean, when I was a guest on the Right Way podcast, and we had this conversation. I said, no matter where, if I'm a contender, you always want, especially in the NBA nowadays, you always need to add an additional star. But the star that the guy I'm putting a big circle around and then immediately Xing it out is James Harden. That's the guy I wouldn't want to touch if I'm a contender. If I'm right there, why would I want to bring in a ball dominant guy who's probably going to change the effect of how the entire offense is ran? I don't see James Harden ever leading or even at this point being a part of a team where he is the guy or one of the guys in a championship team. I just don't see how it's possible with a guy who's so ball dominant.
No, the way James Harden would work is if you put him into a team that had 2 supporting stars and needed a true superstar to put it over the top. I'm trying to think of a good example here, but I'm trying to think of a good example. If you got one, I don't know how great of an example this is, but Indiana, Victor Oladipo, when he's good, is best, very good. Domantas Sabonis, maybe a guy like James Harden who can carry a team, knows how to score and can play make is a great option to, let Victor Oladipo operate off the ball. But Brooklyn, Kevin Durant can operate off ball. We know that. He doesn't need to carry a ball up the court. Hell, we saw him operate with Russ. We saw him operate with Curry. And even they changed that system to also fit Kevin Durant. That's how selfless the Golden State system is. They changed up their system to fit Kevin Durant. But Kyrie needs the ball. Kyrie's got an ego. I don't care. If you want to say it's overplayed, then James Harden's ego is underplayed. If you think Kyrie Irving's ego is overplayed, then we don't talk about James Harden's ego enough. Because we're talking in our group chat, not taking a shot at anybody, but somebody said he might decide into two rule. I was talking to someone at my school, and they were like, that team would win a title easy. And I'm like, really? Really? And they were like, yeah, imagine that. I'm like, and they were like, yeah, you could kick James Harden over to shooting guard. He did it with Russ before. He did it to Russ, Tom, when we were like 10 years old. Me and you are going towards drowning in student debt right now. I mean, I'm exaggerating here a little bit, but we're focusing on student debt, making money. Back then, we were worried about going to play outside with our friends. James Harden was 22. Sure. The guy barely had a beard at the time. He was removed from college. Like his Arizona State days were recent. My little brother's in 7th grade now. He wasn't in elementary school yet.
You're right, dude.
So he's not that guy, and it's muscle memory now. And if James Harden could slide into the 2 role, slide into the shooting guard role, the stereotypical role, we would have saw it last year and it would have worked in Houston. You have an inexperienced coach, and I get it. Jack Vaughn, he's a good coaching candidate. But there's a difference between coaching with stars and coaching without stars. It's why Kenny Atkinson couldn't work there. You have to know how to coach cars. You need to know how to massage egos. I'm not sure Steve Nash knows how to massage egos. Mike D'Antoni already busted with Harden. I'm not a fan of it.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, I just don't see. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation. The leadership, from the top down the assistant coach line in Brooklyn. Will that even work? Steve Nash is one of the greatest players of all time, but there comes a sense of will he be able to handle these guys? There's no question he knows his X's and O's. We know that. It's just a fact that can he run a team? Will he have that ability to have that say at the top with guys like Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving? And then you even potentially add James Harden in the mix. It's just the only word that, and I will continue to use it, that is the word disaster. That's all I see it would being.
Like Doc Rivers is a very smart coach. I think he knows his X's and O's pretty well.
Sure.
Is he that coach that gets you a championship? Sure, he did it once in Boston with a great Big Three before the Big Three era even started. But let's look at what he's done since then. Imagine getting eliminated in the second round with Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, and all the talent they had last year. It was one of the best assembled rosters in NBA history, you could argue. Yeah. Imagine getting eliminated to a 7 seed. That's it right there. We don't know if Steve Nash could do it. He could be a good coach. Wait, right? Dallas was a 7 seed? No.
They beat Dallas and they lost to Denver.
Yes, Denver. I'm sorry. I forget which seed Denver was. I forgot they beat Dallas. But the Dallas series wasn't even as convincing as you would like. I'm sorry.
No, without Porzingis. Without Porzingis, it wasn't that convincing. Because, again, they missed him from game 4 on. Or I think it was game 4, game 3 on. And it really wasn't convincing. And this is coming from a guy who loved the Clippers. I picked them preseason. I picked them in the bubble. I picked them, continuously. But, it wasn't convincing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a trip up by me right there. But the fact still remains. They lost to the second round. They weren't convincing in the first. And then they lose to Denver and Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. And that's what Steve Nash should be. It's not all about X's and O's. You need to know how to massage egos. That's what makes Phil Jackson so great. That's what makes Popovich so great. He knows how to massage egos. Do you really think Steve Nash, without any prior coaching experience, could draw up an offense that can fit all these guys, can feed all these guys?
I don't see it happening. I think Mike D'Antoni, I think he's one of the best offensive-minded coaches, in the entire league. But there's only so much you can do with a group like this. I don't know. I'm going to continue having the same stance, which is just that I think it would be a disaster. I think it will be a disaster.
And I want to touch on one more thing about this deal before we move on to something else. We haven't talked about the package.
Mm-hmm.
Look at what Drew Holiday got traded for. 3 firsts, 2 swaps, and there was a player or 2 in there as well, right?
Yes.
Now imagine what James Harden costs.
Yeah, and listen, if I'm the Brooklyn Nets, you have a bunch of picks still, which fine, they have a somewhat amount of picks for me. I'm fine with them throwing a bunch of their future and current picks for a player now, because you have this tight window of 3 more years. I'm fine with that, but the Houston Rockets are going to want, and again, this is a Harden hypothetical. The Houston Rockets will want NBA players now. They'd want Jared Allen. They'd want Spencer Dinwiddie. They'd want Karis LeVert and 2 first-round picks.
At
You know,
least.
they're gonna want all of that. You know, maybe even a guy like Joe Harris. You know, he would probably fit in Houston pretty well. So you know, you have that. That's why I think that this is kind of what I opened with is that you know if you get rid of all these guys, who's your fourth best player? Who's your fifth guy? That starting core is fantastic, but who's that first guy come off the bench when Irving or Harden twist an ankle? Who's going to be able to step up for them because they don't have that depth anymore like they did 2 years ago.
Yeah.
2 years ago, there would be no problem. But now they just do not have that because of assets that, have left Brooklyn.
Yeah, and one of the guys you mentioned, Joe Harris, unrestricted free agent this offseason. Atlanta's been.
Oh, my apologies.
No, I'm not even criticizing you. I'm just saying Atlanta's rumored to be being heavy. Like, that's a guy who has legitimate value because 3-point shooters in this modern NBA have a lot of value. Even if they don't offer much else, a guy who is as laced out as Joe Harris will have value wherever he goes. And that's a guy who probably would have had more value than his talent is worth because of the one ability he provides. But I have that. But Caris LeVert, if Caris LeVert is if he's your six man of the year candidate, I would love to have him off my bench. But even Jared Allen talked about that Draymond Green, that Andrew Bogut, that Kevin Love, or you want to call it Tristan Thompson for Cleveland? Jared Allen has the potential to be that. The guy could block and rebound with the best of them in the league. And he should. You're not going to deal done without him. Spencer Dinwiddie could be your Shaun Livingston. Sure, he's maybe more ball dominant than Shaun Livingston, but he's proven that he can do whatever you need him to do on a given night. He has proven that. Month through the season, he was actually an MVP candidate. You want to go back and look at it, he really was.
Right. Yeah, no, you're right. You're absolutely correct. To the All-Star break, you're absolutely correct.
So, so now at that point, you're getting rid of your core, and I get it. You could just fill this with veterans, but veterans weren't the sixth man. Iguodala was already there, and Iguodala was still a very good player. It's not like David West was the sixth man at the last legs of his career. Iguodala was already there to help set a culture and won a Finals MVP. I mean, Max Kellerman said, Martians pointing at the earth or whatever, give me Andre Iguodala. It shouldn't have been a debate, but the fact that he's that highly respected speaks for itself and continues to be, even as his career is now dwindling. I don't see anybody like that in the Met.
I agreed. I agreed with Kellerman to an extent.
Oh, shut up. We're not going to get into that right now. But even
I did.
But the Nets have this guy on their bench, Nick Claxton, their backup center right now. I really like him. He's not ready to be the guy yet. A lot of athletic upside, but he can't be that guy yet. DeAndre Jordan and him can't carry rotation at this point of their career as center duo. They can't bang down low in the playoffs. I don't see this working. I don't see you being able to rebuild a team this fast, or you could give this three the supporting cast they need. Like I said before, Shane Battier, Ray Allen, Mike Miller, all so reliable for LeBron. And the thing that, I said it with Golden State, I'm going to say about the Heat, Dwayne Wade's a pretty selfless player. He could pass and distribute.
Oh, yeah.
LeBron James, for his talent, is maybe the most he's arguably the best passer in basketball. I mean, he's as extraordinarily talented as they come. If LeBron James wanted to, he could score 40 a night.
Yes, you're one of those people. You're one of those people.
What's one of those people?
LeBron could score 50 every night if he wanted to. Blah, blah, blah.
I mean, Tom, it's a fact, but he's still the best player of our generation.
Of our generation. Not of all time.
We'll get into that debate, and I actually agree with you on that point at another state and time. But LeBron James can distribute. He creates. He's an amazing creator. He's an amazing guy.
No, absolutely. Yeah, no,
I know you're absolutely a bit of a dick. I love you for that. But the point is, LeBron's great. He can do whatever he wants, but he's selfless as well. Bosh took a step back and was selfless. And as soon as LeBron left, do we remember the brief resurgence Bosh had before the medical issues?
Mm-hmm.
He became an all-star, an all NBA type guy again. His talent never left. He sacrificed for the good of the team. I don't see that here in Brooklyn.
Me either.
That's why this is going to be a flop. It's not about the talent. It's about how they fit together and the egos. There's a formula for this. You need guys who are selfless. You need guys who are willing to work together, which is why I like Kawhi Leonard and Paul George together, because they both can defer. They can both do whatever needed to. But
I agree.
All three of these guys are selfish when it comes down to it. Katie's a
disaster.
Katie's a snake. Kyrie has an ego. James Harden just might not be that lovable. I don't know. But we were going to go into something else, but I think this is actually going to be a great place for us to wrap it up. Remember, subscribe to the channel. go to twsn.net, download the merch, download the buy the merch, download the app. What do you say?
Let's hope the next time we talk, the Knicks did well in the draft. They maybe acquired the star. Let's just hope for once. Can we hope for that?
Oh, Tom, I'm planning a big Knicks episode for us. We have a big Knicks episode coming, I think. Knicks or Giants, something's coming soon. That's good.
Let's hope.
Let's hope. Remember, let's go Knicks. Let's go Yankees. And have a good one, guys.